The Haunting of Blackwood Manor. In the rolling hills of Virginia stood a grand, yet weathered, estate known as Blackwood Manor. The mansion, built in the early 1800s, was once the pride of the Blackwood family, who were known for their wealth and influence. But over the years, the mansion had fallen into disrepair, its once pristine gardens overgrown, and its windows dark and shuttered. The townsfolk avoided the estate, speaking in hushed tones about the curse that plagued the Blackwood family. The last known resident of Blackwood Manor, Annabelle Blackwood, had vanished without a trace nearly 50 years ago. Since then, the mansion had stood empty, and rumors spread that the estate was haunted. Some claimed to see flickering lights in the windows at night, while others swore they heard whispers carried on the wind when they passed by the gates. One autumn, a young historian named Marcus arrived in the nearby town of Willow Creek. He was fascinated by the history of old estates and had heard of Blackwood Manor through his research. Despite the locals' warnings, Marcus was determined to uncover the truth about the mysterious mansion and the fate of Annabelle Blackwood. After settling into a small inn, Marcus made his way to the estate. The air was crisp, and the trees were ablaze with the colors of fall as he approached the wrought iron gates of Blackwood Manor. Pushing the creaking gates open, he followed the overgrown path that led to the front door. The mansion loomed before him, its dark silhouette a stark contrast against the bright autumn sky. Marcus took a deep breath and entered the mansion. The door groaned on its hinges, and the air inside was heavy with the scent of dust and decay. Sunlight filtered through the cracks in the boarded-up windows, casting long shadows on the wooden floors. The grand foyer, once a place of elegance and grandeur, was now a ghostly shell of its former self. As Marcus explored the mansion, he felt a growing unease. The silence was oppressive, and every creak of the floorboards seemed to echo through the empty halls. He found rooms filled with old furniture, covered in sheets, and portraits of stern-faced Blackwood ancestors staring down at him from the walls. Despite the eerie atmosphere, Marcus pressed on, driven by his curiosity. He eventually reached the second floor and entered a room that appeared to be a study. The room was in better condition than the others, as if it had been preserved for some unknown reason. A large desk stood in the center, and behind it, a bookshelf filled with old, leather-bound books. But what caught Marcus's attention was a single journal lying on the desk, its pages yellowed with age. The journal belonged to Annabelle Blackwood. Marcus carefully opened the journal and began to read. The entries were filled with tales of loneliness and despair, as Annabelle wrote about her isolation in the mansion. Her family had died under mysterious circumstances, and she was left alone in the vast estate. But as Marcus read on, the entries became more disturbing. Annabelle wrote of strange occurrences in the mansion, objects moving on their own, whispers in the night, and the feeling of being watched. She described vivid nightmares of dark figures standing at the foot of her bed, their faces hidden in shadow. The final entries were almost incoherent, filled with desperate pleas for help and mentions of the darkness that was consuming her. The last entry was dated the day Annabelle vanished. It simply read, "I cannot escape it. The darkness has found me. I must go to the cellar." A chill ran down Marcus's spine as he realized the significance of the journal's final words. The cellar. He knew he had to find it, to uncover what had happened to Annabelle Blackwood. With the journal in hand, Marcus searched the mansion until he found a door leading to the cellar. The door was old and heavy, and it took all his strength to push it open. A damp, musty smell wafted up from the darkness below as he descended the creaking stairs. The cellar was cold and damp, with stone walls and a dirt floor. The light from Marcus's flashlight flickered as he explored the space. It was then that he noticed something odd, a section of the wall that looked different from the rest. The stones were newer, as if they had been added later. He pushed on the wall, and to his surprise, it shifted slightly, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside the compartment, Marcus found a small box covered in dust. With trembling hands, he opened the box to reveal a locket and a letter. The locket contained a portrait of Annabelle, and the letter was addressed to whomever finds this. The letter was written in Annabelle's hand, and it told a horrifying tale. Annabelle had been cursed by a malevolent spirit that had attached itself to her family generations ago. The spirit, fueled by envy and hatred, had killed her family and slowly drove her to madness. In her final days, Annabelle had tried to escape, but the spirit had trapped her in the mansion, consuming her soul. The letter ended with a warning: the spirit is bound to this place. It cannot leave. But if you have found this letter, it means it has awoken once more. Leave this place now, before it is too late. As Marcus read the last words, he felt an overwhelming sense of dread. The air around him grew colder, and the shadows in the cellar seemed to move on their own. He turned to leave, but found himself face to face with a dark figure. The figure was tall, with hollow eyes that burned with an otherworldly fire. It was the spirit, and it had been awakened by Marcus's presence. Panic surged through Marcus as the spirit reached out for him, its touch freezing his skin. He tried to flee, but the cellar door slammed shut, trapping him in the darkness. The spirit whispered in his ear, its voice filled with malice and despair, as it began to draw the life from his body. With a final surge of strength, Marcus grabbed the locket and hurled it at the spirit. The locket struck the spirit, and there was a blinding flash of light. The spirit let out a shriek of rage and pain as it was banished back into the darkness. The light from the locket faded, and Marcus collapsed to the floor, gasping for breath. The cellar was silent once more, the oppressive presence gone. He knew he had narrowly escaped with his life, but the experience had left him shaken to his core. Marcus left Blackwood Manor that night, never to return. He moved far away from Willow Creek, leaving behind his research and his curiosity about the paranormal. But he could never forget the horror he had witnessed in that old mansion, and the knowledge that the spirit was still there, waiting for the next unwitting soul to awaken it. As for Blackwood Manor, it remains abandoned to this day, its dark history hidden behind its crumbling walls. The townsfolk continue to avoid it, passing down the story of Annabelle Blackwood and the cursed spirit that haunts the halls. And so, the legend of Blackwood Manor lives on, a reminder that some secrets are better left buried.